Something the addition of Aegon's prophecy into House of the Dragon has done is made me look back at the Kings of Westeros in a new light. We know the idea came directly from George R.R. Martin, and while I am a firm believer that the show is the show and the book is the book, the fact this came directly from the man himself cannot be overlooked. Plus, this concept of Aegon knowing about the Long Night being his reason for the conquest of Westeros has been a popular fan theory for years. Thus, I am quite comfortable with Aegon's prophecy having an impact on book lore. What this new information about Aegon's prophecy does is allow us to look at the reigns of Kings of Westeros through this new lens, allowing us to view their actions and choices in a new light. When you do this, some of these more random elements of these reigns seem to make a bit more sense, and allows you to view these kings as people from a very different point of view. For example, I've always questioned whether Maegor the Cruel was really that cruel. Did history just give him a bad rap? Westeros was in a state of chaos after the death of King Aenys, with the Faith Uprising a huge part of that. If the situation wasn't handled, Targaryen rule in Westeros would collapse, and Aegon's dream of a united Westeros standing against the Long Night would die. Now Maegor was definitely harsh, perhaps even cruel, but what he did do was deal with the faith and stabilise Westeros under House Targaryen. Without Maegor, the dynasty would have collapsed. He paved the way for Jaehaerys, who is regarded as perhaps the best king Westeros ever saw. Without Maegor, there would be no Jaehaerys. Without him, Jaehaerys could never have achieved what he did during his long reign. If you view the actions of Maegor as trying to protect Aegon's prophecy and ensure it was fulfilled, a lot of the things about him do actually start to make sense. But that is a video all in itself. This video is specifically about Jaehaerys the Conciliator, and to some extent as well, good Queen Alysanne. Looking at the long reign through the lens of Aegon's prophecy, a lot of things start to make sense. If they knew about the prophecy where he and Alysanne and the work they did during his reign, and attempt to prepare Westeros and get it in the best shape possible for the Long Night, politically stable, a strong economy, a pacified faith, modernised infrastructure, a thriving small folk, a strong Night's Watch, and many Targaryens with dragons, all which would contribute greatly to the Seven Kingdoms being able to handle a situation such as the Long Night and the White Walkers. Both Jaehaerys and Alysanne changed Westeros politically like no other rulers have. Namely, very early on in his reign, Jaehaerys spent a lot of time reworking and restructuring the laws of Westeros, thus making them fit for purpose. Before, each region of Westeros had their own laws, with even some larger houses having their own interpretations of them and dealing justice in their own way. There was no consistency throughout the realm, giving Westeros one single set of common laws that all lords were to enforce in each of the kingdoms, firmly places the realm behind Targaryen rule and signifies their authority, thus bringing the kingdom of Westeros closer together rather than 7 individual kingdoms. He tried to give the 7 kingdoms of Westeros an identity with a common unity within its people. That sense of unity within the kingdom, one king, would be necessary to give Westeros the best chance to fight back against the coming winter. The reform of laws also feeds into the reform of trade, with huge reworking of the tax system and huge amounts of money invested in the expansion of the wider economy of Westeros. A prosperous kingdom is a prepared kingdom. The idea of knitting the bonds of the realm closer together is the centre to all of this. Out of all the kings of Westeros before and since, Jaehaerys was probably by far the most well-travelled, seeing near every key part of his realm during his long reign. He spent countless years on royal progresses up and down the kingdom. This reinforced the idea that Westeros was a single realm behind one king. The Faith Uprising that plagued the rules of Aenys and Maegor almost brought down House Targaryen. If the house fell, then any hope of Aegon's prophecy preventing the Long Night died with it. Whilst it was mostly Maegor who put down the Faith Uprising, the Faith Militant, and the Faith in general was just a tinderbox waiting for a spark. But Jaehaerys, with the help of Septon Bath, redefined House Targaryen's relationship with the Faith, with the doctrine of exemptionalism, recognition and agreement from the Faith that the sons and daughters of House Targaryen were more than simple mortal men, given that they can ride dragons and do not get ill like normal men, thanks to their Valyrian heritage, which made them distinctly different from the normal population of Westeros. This, in effect, justified and allowed House Targaryen to conduct incestuous marriages without resistance from the faith. If the concept of keeping the blood of House Targaryen pure is part of the logic behind Aegon's prophecy, then this doctrine was vital in keeping the faith in line and preventing them from uprising against House Targaryen every time there was a marriage. The last political aspect of this is related to Alysanne. Good Queen Alysanne loved to set up and make marriages. The number of marriages she set up from the north to the south is staggering, not only healing local historical disputes with these marriages, but also marrying houses from very different parts of Westeros together. Along with the codifying of laws, this had the effect of building bonds between the houses and bringing them close and knitting the realm closer together. She also married, or tried to marry, many of her own daughters to the great houses, some working out and some never actually coming to fruition. But this again builds direct ties with the houses of Westeros and House Targaryen, creating a sense of unity behind the king. Alysanne also did a lot politically, advocating a lot for the rights of women, but importantly, when it comes to the subject of this video, she convinced Jaehaerys to outlaw the right to the first night, an ancient custom practiced up and down Westeros, but particularly in the north, that allowed the lord to claim the bride's first night on her wedding, often resulting in the abuse of these women from their new husbands in the aftermath, and the birth of many bastards. While outlawing this is obviously a good thing, there could also be an aspect of this related to Aegon's prophecy. It's been a long-standing fan theory that the right to the first night has some sort of connection and origin to the Long Night and the White Walkers, with some fans suggesting that the children born as a result of these nights were perhaps offered as sacrifices to the others, in a similar manner as Craster did beyond the wall, as seen in the main book series. If you are trying to ready the realm for a new Long Night, outlawing this practice would be vital. But it goes a lot deeper than just politics. Jaehaerys truly invested into the infrastructure of Westeros. While the Seven Kingdoms did have roads, even the biggest, most important, were little more than dirt tracks. Jaehaerys planned and financed the improvements of these roads, and even started the building of huge new roads that would run from King's Landing all the way to the Wall, the King's Road. Roads are the lifeblood of a kingdom. It not only makes it easier for people to move and travel, it brings them closer together. The benefit on trade and movement of goods cannot be understated, allowing even the poorest of merchants to sell their goods anywhere from Old Town to the Wall. But building this huge network of roads also makes it a lot easier and faster to rally an army and move them about the kingdom with ease, something that would be vital in a situation such as the Long Night, where huge amounts of manpower would needed to be moved up and down the kingdom to defend it. There is one more huge bit of evidence that many of these actions were preparing the kingdom for the coming Long Night. Jaehaerys was one of the only kings who actively invested in the Night's Watch and sought to improve them as an organisation. Much of this was down to Alysanne. When she visited the Wall, she was particularly interested in the capabilities of the Night's Watch and its castles. From it, she learned that most of the castles along the Wall were derelict, and the ones that were manned were ruinous to maintain. It is said that she sold her jewels to fund the repairs and improvements of these castles, and even commissioned the building of a new castle after her suggestion that the Watch abandoned the overly large Night Fort, which they no longer had the manpower to maintain or garrison. The money given to the Watch and the infrastructure improvements is one of the only times in recent history where the capabilities of the Watch were improved. But why did she do this? Even without investment, the Watch could hold back the wildlings, as they had done for generations, and even if they needed assistance, they would be assured of the help from some of the northern houses, such as the Starks and Umbers. While Alysanne was at the Wall, she tried to fly her dragon Silverwing over it. Much to her shock and horror, the dragon refused, even after 3 attempts. She later went on to say that the incident made her feel deeply uncomfortable. If we look at her actions through the lens of Aegon's prophecy, then her sudden interest in the abilities of the Night's Watch and why she would want to invest so much of her own personal wealth into it makes a lot more sense. It's almost as if by trying to fly over the Wall, she was testing to see if the tales that she had been told had any truth to them. Maybe the biggest thing to come from Alysanne's trip to the Wall is her being able to convince Jaehaerys on the needs of the Watch. The Queen felt that Brandon's gift, the land meant to sustain the Watch and keep them self-sufficient, was not enough, and suggested to Jaehaerys that he double the land by extending the gift a further 20 leagues south. Lord Alaric Stark was wary of the idea of the new gift, as the Northmen who had already held those lands would oppose having them taken away. According to Archmaester Gyldain, the charming Alysanne eventually persuaded Lord Stark to agree to the plan, and it is said that the Starks were glad to aid the Watch. but there would be some bitterness towards House Targaryen for many years to come, and the issue of the new gift is even somewhat controversial into the Baratheon era. It was a bold plan, and one that risked much anger from the Northern Lords. So for Jaehaerys to agree to his wife's suggestion, it suggests he truly understood the value of the Night's Watch as the first line of defense of his kingdom, not just from wildlings, but perhaps White Walkers and the coming Long Night. When you look at the decision to allow the new gift through this new context of Aegon's prophecy, it starts to make a lot of sense. When you take a lot of these examples and look at them through the lens of Aegon's dream of the coming Long Night, it does kind of look like Jaehaerys' great works, such as law reform, uplifting the small folk, infrastructure, economic growth, improvements to the Night's Watch, and the knitting of the realm together via marriages, could have perhaps been himself and Alysanne trying to prepare the Seven Kingdoms for the coming Long Night and the White Walkers. However, something to remember is when you do look for patterns like this, you will often subconsciously see what you were looking for. While all of this could very well be a sign they were prepping the kingdom, it could very well just be a series of unconnected events. Jaehaerys might simply have wanted to improve the lives of his people and ensure the survival of House Targaryen. But that is why I find the idea of looking at the reigns of these kings through the lenses of Aegon's prophecy so interesting as a thought experiment. It creates this single narrative running through the whole of Targaryen history and makes a lot of unconnected events connect. Like I said, while it does make it look like they were prepping the kingdom, at the same time it could just all be circumstantial and seeing patterns where there isn't any. Anyway, what do you guys think about this idea that Jaehaerys and Alysanne were preparing Westeros for the Long Night? Does it seem possible, or is it all just unconnected? I don't really have an opinion either way, but I think it's an interesting idea.